Welcome to Not Just Ads, the show where B2B brands discover how creator-led content drives pipeline, builds trust, and grows long-term brand equity. Each episode, we speak with business leaders, founders, and creators who are defining their categories. I'm your host, Marcus Sherwin, and this is the creator economy for B2B.
Hello and welcome today to Not Just Ads, the creator economy for B2B. Today, I'm delighted to be joined by Sam Dunning. If you're not familiar with him, Sam has been around the B2B space for a number of years with his agency, SEO agency, Breaking B2B. He has a wealth of knowledge in the space and I'm really looking forward to getting into the conversation with him. Sam, cheers for joining us today.
Thanks for having me on, Marcus. Look forward to the chat.
Great. Maybe we could roll back because you've been in this space for quite a while. You have a number of years of experience. And I think what resonates with a lot of people is the way you present your content. You're very transparent in terms of what you see working, what doesn't work. I think people get a lot of value from that. But I'd love to just roll the whole way back in terms of how did Breaking B2B come about? Where did the idea come from? How did you get into the space?
I'll try and give the least painful, shortest version of the story as possible. But I suppose I started in web dev. I started in web design and dev. So basically, and I've done loads of different sales and marketing jobs over the years, but I think it stemmed out because I basically worked originally for a web design and dev shop doing like project management, then sales, account management, kind of working my way up. Eventually became a co-owner of that company. But the bottleneck in that business was running, and a lot of people that have run a web dev shop probably know a similar thing. Cash flow each month was very lumpy. So you'd sell a web dev project, get an influx of business, and then be hunting for the next job. It's not like consistent. But back then, our main inbound flow was SEO because we ranked really well for key website dev design agency terms and stuff like that many years ago. So that got us most of our best leads. And I thought, well, why are we doing this? We might as well just offer SEO. It's going to make way more sense. We get recurring income. It's something we know we can do well. But at that time, we were making the kind of prime B2B mistake of trying to serve anyone and everyone. So it could be anyone from Bob's Bakery down the road to a mechanic to a massive enterprise bank that might get in touch to a software company. Like there was no consistent client base. So we'd have clients like paying us a few $100s to clients paying us thousands and thousands. So there's no fixed target market. And as you can imagine, it was an absolute pain because anyone that's been in the space quite often knows that the lower ticket clients are actually way more hassle than the higher paying clients, from my experience, almost every time, hands down. And whilst this was going on, I was co-owner of this web agency at the time. I started my own podcast that was originally called the very vain name of Sam's Business Growth Show that I started in 2020, like COVID, and then grew it out over the time and eventually became Breaking B2B a couple of years ago. Now, during that time, I interviewed tons of folks, started with anyone and everyone again, similar kind of thing, entrepreneurs, sales leaders, marketing leaders, fine-tuned it to be. Whilst that was going on, I was learning a lot from these B2B marketers, these B2B founders, these SaaS marketers, these SaaS founders on how they're growing their business, how they're building their go-to-market, how they're scaling the company. I learned a lot about how tech funding companies get funding, like building marketing foundation, learned a lot from experts around customer research, messaging, positioning, all this kind of stuff. I was getting a wealth of knowledge from interviewing these people each and every week. And I thought, I'm doing this backwards. Like, I'm trying to sell to anyone and everyone. These people have just given me the cheat code. I need to fine tune like exactly who I'm speaking to, work out who these dream clients are that actually have the expensive problem we solve, are motivated to solve it, have the cash to do it, and want to get the job done. So in the end, I got out of the web agency, started Breaking B2B with that focus, that we're going to go after B2B tech, probably SaaS companies with SEO and now AI search. And that's kind of it really. Just a lot of what I've done has just come through, and Breaking B2B is now in month 25, but a lot of it has just come through doing things the hard way, right? Trying stuff, didn't work, trying something else, might have worked, learning from people way smarter than me, getting that feedback loop from interviewing kind of marketing leaders, SaaS founders each and every week, and eventually something clicking.
I can relate to that a lot. So would you say then that the podcast in a way was kind of the entry point to some extent for you, know? That was like the vehicle that enabled you to kind of get a lot of that insight.
It was a big piece because I learned a ton and then put a lot of what I learned into action, and also helped me nurture some relationships now with folks that are still friends, some clients and so forth. But at the same time, I'm one of those sick founders, marketers that has a background in sales. So I actually believe that some of the best marketers I know were sellers. And I've, like some of my first clients when I started this company, because we had zero marketing, I've cold called well-funded SaaS companies, their CMOs, their VP of marketing, and earned those as clients. And some of those are now still our best clients. So whilst this was going on, I was getting all these learnings. I was cold calling, like sweating away on my desk trying to get business because we had no foundation, because we had zero funding. So we were working on a lean bootstrap budget. And then it was clicking that the best conversations, the best deals I was getting in were SaaS companies. So it all kind of fed into each other, like getting real world insights, talking to marketers. I also do a lot of like my own education. Like I listen to a lot of B2B SaaS podcasts, or audio books, that kind of stuff. So it was like a combination of things that said like, this is the right direction, and eventually clicked. And thankfully now I don't have to do outbound sales.
Yeah, I guess that's the dream of any company, is just having a steady amount of consistent leads in that can grow the business. I think that's the most difficult nut to crack, right?
That's it. And one thing that frustrates me is I think a lot of B2B marketers in general just dismiss outbound sales as like a channel that doesn't work, but a lot of them haven't actually tried it. And I know 100% it works. Like I sell SEO and inbound marketing. That works. Outbound works with the right approach. Most things work. It just depends on the company's setup, their resource, and how they're structured, and who their ICP is, whether it actually is a valuable channel.
I'd love to talk to you a little bit about outbound there as well, because there's a lot of trails of thought on and I talk with people in, say, enterprise companies and then kind of like mid-sized companies as well. And I think you always see these kind of trends. Like for a couple of years ago, it was all about growth marketing, and now everything is about GTM and about Clay and automation and so on. I'd love to hear from your perspective. I have my own opinion about it, but have you spoke with any companies that can kind of directly correlate like their integration with Clay as like having a massive boost in their revenue? Or is it just a bit of a smokescreen really, that you've invested that much money into the integration? Nobody really wants to say, actually, this made fuck all difference to our pipeline.
Yeah, I can't give any real evidence on that, because not a lot of my clients, at least the ones that I speak to, of course, we have strategists that manage accounts as well. I can't say. I spoke to a marketer earlier that was about to invest in Clay, and I know a few that dabble around with it. I haven't spoke to any that have said that it's had like a significant impact. So I couldn't say, really. I could talk to outbound generally, but I couldn't speak to Clay specifically, mainly because I don't have a hands-on experience and I don't know a lot of folks that are actively in the weeds using it themselves.
What's worked for you? What do you see working in general from your own experience in the agency? What's been most effective, apart from consistency?
It all works, right? That's the thing. But it depends. Like many things in marketing, it's like, what do you have the resource for, or the cash, or the team to do? Or what can you pay another contractor or agency or whatever it is that makes sense? So in my case, when I started Breaking B2B, because we were bootstrapped, I didn't have the cash to do a lot of stuff. So because my expertise was in SEO, we were building out that SEO engine when we started. So we were like building a framework, working out like those money keywords that we wanted to rank for around like best SaaS SEO agency and all that good stuff. So that was going on in the background, but that took a little bit of time. Meanwhile, what could I do to get some leads like in the short term? Well, cold email was one thing. So I found a freelancer that could help me set up a cold email a cold email system. So I could reach out to SaaS marketing leaders, just do a painfully short message, offer them a Loom SEO video review. And meanwhile, I could, whilst I was doing LinkedIn content, reaching out for referrals, building our own SEO engine, super scrappy, I was cold calling like CMOs, VPs of marketing, etc., and tech companies and booking meetings that way. And that was like the first good few months until we had a steady stream of clients, and eventually could ramp up our own SEO efforts, eventually could invest into paid media like LinkedIn ads. Like I say, thankfully up like a couple of years in now, we don't have to do too much outbound. We still do a little bit, but yeah, we've been blessed really. But a lot of it is doing smart stuff. And when you're a scrappy company, I think that saying necessity is the mother of invention is very true. You kind of do whatever it takes to grow your business.
Makes a lot of sense in terms of like what you do to make it work really. And I suppose the other thing is like if you're in a company like a SaaS company and you're looking for investment and those things, I guess it's a different playbook that if the exit is in mind. Whereas if you're just looking at, look, we want to get revenue in, we want to be profitable and we want to be efficient.
But yeah,
it's a different playbook really, isn't it?
Definitely. For funded companies, completely different playbook because they're usually under huge pressure to hit certain revenue goals within a very short space of time, usually. I do still I'm usually speaking to a SaaS marketing leader or two each day. And there is still companies seeing great success with outbound. There's some that don't. There's some that are heavily inbound. It's a wide contrast, to be fair. Oftentimes it depends on who they're going after. Like if they're going after like very specific enterprise folks, outbound motion probably makes way more sense because they got higher ACV. It's quite pinpointed. Maybe they're doing a mix of like ads, ABM, and outbound. Whereas if their market's a bit broader, maybe they're more mid-market and such, then like SEO inbound motion makes way more sense. So it all depends on like who you're going after, right? And the cash you've got to put into it.
Yeah, for sure. From the early days of the business then, when you were doing outbound, like what were you looking at that you were getting traction? Were you kind of like, when you left the other business, that you already kind of generated revenue straight away, that you had a few clients on board? Or was it something like, it was like, look, no, I need to really go after these for the first few months?
I didn't have a lot, to be fair. And the other thing was like, we just had our first kid. And we just moved into a bigger house. So I was like, shit, I need to make this work. So that's why I say, like, necessity makes you do it. It's actually a good thing.
Yeah.
Like, a lot of late nights and early mornings and the rest of it. But as a bootstrap company, it's just kind of what you do.
Yeah.
So yeah, it was just like work out what at a high level made sense. So I was like, well, I know SaaS companies have the problem we solve. I'm motivated to do it. And they usually have like small marketing teams that are understaffed, and usually inbound is something they want to ramp up. So let's lead with specific pain points that I know the market's facing, make a very concise message for an outbound cold email program, and likewise for the cold calling. And it would almost be silly if it didn't work. Not that I'm expecting to get a ton of responses or a ton of positive like meetings booked, but a small section of that served me well for the start until we could build out the rest of the inbound, get some cash flowing, and then ramp up the rest of the inbound engine, basically.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's an interesting story. With that, like, because you mentioned you're about 22 years, a little over 2 years now with Breaking B2B, or is it longer?
That's right, yeah.
Yeah. And I saw on one of your podcasts, you're over, what is it, about 120K monthly? Is that right?
Yeah, so the business does just hit about 200K USD per month.
Okay. And then with like kind of, how does the company look like in terms of like, do you have many full-time, is it mostly with kind of like freelancers, or what way does that work?
Yeah, we try and stay pretty lean. Up until 8 months ago, we only had one full-time strategist and me, and then contractors. But now we've got full-time strategists, and then basically a panel of contractors for the content writing, link building, and the rest of the team really. So it's grown a little bit.
Yeah, no, but it's like, if you look at that per revenue per head count, it's pretty efficient when you think about it really as a business.
Yeah, I mean, margins are something you've got to keep your eye on as an agency owner, right? So it's that you've got to bear in mind the time and support that you're going to give to clients, and making sure everyone gets time to value. So there's always stuff to think about. But yeah, I'm a big fan of, because I've made so many mistakes in the past in agency world, I'm very cautious when it comes to keeping lean and like hiring.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. What are you looking at now with like AI tools? And I think probably one of the challenges, I don't know if it's for you, but I definitely see it, is like, you see this cloud automation, you see this thing, and I've stopped actually asking for the playbooks now, because I don't really think that it's a marketing tool in itself. But from your side of running your business, and you do 200K monthly recurring revenue, have you seen any efficiencies or wins with like bringing in AI automations to the business on the back end?
Yeah, we use a bit. Our team use it more than me. We use it more we still have a panel of a decent amount of writers. So we actually still have like 15 writers like contracted on the panel. So we're still big believers in, especially as a lot of our clients are like B2B tech, high ACV SaaS companies. So we're big believers in like leveraging as much customer research as possible, but let's use AI to help us with that. Like, for example, we just onboarded a SaaS client. They've got an MCP, so they can link up to their Firefly server. So we can easily pull from sales call recordings and like feed that into a customer knowledge hub. So then our writers basically have like an AI system, whether it's a GPT or a Claude project, where it kind of has all the insights they need, so they can ask that any question they want, and that could just help them build out solid, like research-backed articles, landing pages, product pages, competitor content, etc. So stuff like that. Or sometimes we use it to kind of build an initial framework of pages or stuff like that, or maybe assist with things like keyword research. So it's more speeding up processes, making sure we get the insights we need, not relying on it to actually write content yet at all. I know a lot of folks have differing opinions, but we're much more leaning towards kind of human first still. until it gets to a level where we believe it can be used. So for us, it's more like streamlining processes, making stuff easier, getting access quicker, workflows. And that's kind of how we use it a lot of the time.
Yeah, makes a lot of sense what you mentioned there as well about sales calls. There's a ton of useful information now that's recorded on calls, whether it's pain points, challenges, so on, that sometimes probably a couple of years ago, that wasn't kind of maybe as if you're basically, if we were talking about pre-ChatGPT, you're basing it on the best quality of the notes that are going into the CRM, which are usually not that much because they used to have to be typed.
Yeah.
But I guess the next question then is from what you see with those kind of like efficiencies and so on, do you see any kind of like with content specifically, from what you mentioned, like you're still very much not what would I say, sold on like kind of the output of like kind of AI content? Have you seen any ways that people are kind of close to it, even of performing relatively well, or from what you see that you could spot it a mile off, like if it's AI, in the sense of even if it's fine tuned, it still just seems a little bit kind of like what would I say, like kind of surgical or plastic? No.
Yeah, it's getting. I think it is getting better and better. What I will say is, like, just before I go on to that point, you mentioned about sales calls, and I think this was even before like ChatGPT was a big thing, like 2 years ago, just before I started this company. We literally made our website strapline based on what I heard from sales calls.
Yeah.
So like, and that's the only reason I knew what to do it, because marketers in our case kept saying to me, like agencies kept selling them on, oh, we're going to get you more and more traffic. But then there was no, in their case, there was no demos, signups or leads on the back end. That literally helped me forge our strapline SaaS SEO for revenue, not vanity. So a lot of marketers could benefit so much, but I think it is difficult because some of them don't get access to sales calls in the larger enterprise companies. But just understanding like what are your ICP's top 3 most expensive pain points, what their jobs to be done, what their motivations, what words do they use to describe their solutions, their goals, their motivators, what do they hate most about your industry? Just those things, like, so valuable for your messaging, your positioning. But yeah, in terms of AI content, there's no doubt it's getting better and better. I think the risk, I always look at it from an SEO and AI search lens, the risk you carry is, like we've seen it, some SaaS companies have been hit. So they've kind of worked out like a ton of bottom funnel content that need to pump out, like maybe best X software listicles or competitor content or that kind of stuff. And they've pumped out like 150,000 pages a month. They've had a massive surge in rankings, AI visibility, traffic, maybe even demos. And then a couple months later, just been absolutely crashed because the content's just been so heavily AI. Like there's no real, like if they're reviewing a competitor, there's no real review. It's just generic stuff. It's not like unbiased opinion. It hasn't got thought behind it. Hasn't got research backed thinking, and it kind of gets hit. So I'm always cautious. Like I don't want that to happen to folks we work with. I'd much rather kind of we trimmed it back. And if we are going to experiment with stuff like that, we start small, prove it out, and then slowly build it out.
And you're right. And no one really talks as well about like kind of the loss of equity, for want of a proper word, of like if you are in a SaaS company and let's say, I don't know, you're Series A or Series B and you go down that route, like it's probably much, much harder once you see that drop off after a couple of months to kind of regain kind of credibility in the market. If you're known like that, the content is so bad, I don't think anyone really talks about that. Or I guess you see anyway with clients that kind of have gone down that route, they probably come to you then for a solution. Yeah,
that's it. I mean, it's not going to help the brand, right? You might get, like many things, most things I think in marketing in life that I've found that sound too good to be true.
Yeah.
Usually are.
They usually are, yeah. 100%. But it's funny though, isn't it? Because this kind of stuff keeps working. If you look at like the LinkedIn feed.
Oh, works on LinkedIn posts. Of course it does.
You're like, you go comment below and you see people commenting and you kind of even know them and you're going like, you're not going to probably look or try and implement that, but the people just keep commenting and it's just keep regurgitating. I kind of wonder as well if that's actually effective for people that are commenting. Is it actually driving business or is it just getting them a lot of inbound from the breach that they're doing?
You mean like the lead magnet posts? We do them every now and then. Not on AI tools, more on if we work on, for example, we work with folks like Adam Robinson at B2B, the other Adam Holmgren at Fibbler, SaaS companies, and we might really detailed SEO breakdowns on exactly how we're building their strategy. And then I might say like the day before it's about to come out, like just about to drop this like 30-minute in-depth breakdown, sharing the full blueprint. If you want to see it first, like type the company name below, and I'll ping it to you, and then I'll just drop them the YouTube link and an option to sign up for our newsletter. So I like to use it almost like the Daniel, if you know Daniel Priestley, his pre-up technique.
Yeah, exactly.
Which I think is smart. Like build up demand. If you've got an audience, build up demand before you launch something. Why would you launch something blind? Like it's logic to get interest before you release.
The way you're going about it is though the intelligent way in terms of, because you've done the research and you own the authority. Whereas if it's just somebody random that's basically done something on Cloud Code and they've automated their outreach and now they're getting all this.
I fired my 100K a month SEO agency.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And you see like 600 comments or something like that. But I always wonder, it's like I'm very reluctant to do those kind of things because I kind of think going, if I saw that, I'd be just like, no fucking way. But I think it probably, like what you mentioned, if it's done in the right way and there's a credibility and authority established, it probably does work. You find it though, it's more for really feeding into the newsletter rather than actually getting inbounds from it.
Yeah, I mean, I'm one of those weird guys that doesn't actually attribute that stuff generally that much. Like we've just ramped up our LinkedIn ad spend and I'm not tracking stuff that closely. I'm more just getting signals that it's working. Like if more folks on booked calls are saying, keep seeing your LinkedIn content,
Yeah,
and it's like, this is working because we've just ramped up our ad spend. So I'm more looking for signals. Like we treat everything as an ecosystem, and Justin Rowe at Impactable talks about similar stuff. Like YouTube, for us, our core channels are SEO and AI search, YouTube, LinkedIn organic, and paid. And those three together just seem to be working really well.
Yeah, I agree. I think if you're like a certain size of a business and okay, it's like a enterprise, couple of billion, okay, you probably need a detailed enough attribution model. But if you have a good understanding of the overview of the business, you can probably see if you've switched on something, if it's getting mentioned, or if there's any other things that spiked in comparison to previous months, you can normally kind of see that it's correlated to some extent.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, it's very, very different. Like, there's plenty of software, right, where you can attribute stuff to a certain point, but it all becomes murky. It's like just like now with LLMs and AI search is very difficult because if you're searching on ChatGPT, Perplexity, etc., Claude, they send such little traffic to websites. So the only real way you can measure it is like an increase in branded traffic, direct traffic, or capturing how did you hear about us, then asking again on the sales call, like, what did you do to find us? ChatGPT, okay, great. What did you prompt? And then logging that and then feeding that back to marketing. And in a way, it's like what Chris Walker was talking about years ago with dark social. Like it's so much more difficult to mention. People are tracking you across seeing so much of your stuff, not just on LinkedIn, on YouTube, wherever else, booking when they've discussed it internally with their exec team and then reaching out. So there's no one size fits all to attribution. It's becoming more and more difficult.
Who has it said it? Somebody said it to me before. It's like philosophy, everyone has an opinion, but nobody is really right or wrong. Like if you look at it 1 month, it could be last click. If you look at it another month, it could be multi-touch or whatever. It's very difficult to kind of make it consistent and see a consistent pattern as well, especially when the sales cycles are so long too.
Yeah. But also remember, I'm a founder that's like a marketer. If I was a founder that was maybe pure sales or pure ops, then I might have a different mindset.
Yeah. But like for yourselves though, like when you're looking at like kind of overall of the business of, let's say in monthly, obviously it's revenue, sales calls, things like that. But what other things do you look at from the activity that you do? Is there like particular kind of like KPI pulses that you kind of go like, okay, this is a leading metric, we're going in the right direction?
Yeah, the main one is qualified book calls, and then the right type of calls that, qualified sales ops. And then that convert into pipeline and then revenue, basically. Very, very simple metrics, and then kind of tracking that at a high level that the marketing activity we're doing is working. So if that's me posting on LinkedIn, if that's the Breaking B2B newsletter, the YouTube, like our sponsored LinkedIn ads at those main channels, if we're asking on sales calls, like, how did you discover us? And those things are being mentioned, then we'll log that. And as long as we see an uptick in that stuff, then pretty happy.
Yeah. What about podcast then? Because your content is very good that like you explain a lot. You go into the detail in terms of, how people should look at your money words, what resources, how you treat the podcast as kind of a lead capture. Do you find that is that kind of more to showcase to the customer of like how they should approach things in a framework, or do you find it's actually successful in terms of like actually driving book calls from the podcast itself?
Yeah, we do get direct like inbound from the podcast and from the YouTube. Again, a lot of it we kind of reserve, so in the sense that some of our LinkedIn content will send people to these channels and vice versa. So again, that's why I look at it, because a lot of the companies, we're selling stuff from like 4K US a month to 20K plus a month. So it's a considered decision. No one's waking up deciding to spend that much cash. They're discussing it internally with the team for weeks, months. So they're probably going to check us out, check our LinkedIn, check our website, check our YouTube, and ask for referrals and so forth. So that's kind of how I look at it. But yeah, we do get some, because our philosophy is kind of like share the full playbook, try and do the opposite of what other agencies are doing in our space. That's why we do like stupid skits like me on the out in the public asking people how to get found in ChatGPT, or if cold calling's dead or alive, or if Google's dead, or that kind of stupid stuff, just to stand out, get the attention, and then link it back to our offer, which is SaaS, SEO, and AI search. So yeah, we do get some direct leads, but a lot of them kind of consume content across the various channels before they come inbound.
Yeah. Yeah, no, it's a good strategy you have as well about the in the public. I think a lot of people over-engineer things, and from what I like about what I've seen with your content is that you might meet somebody and you're just recording a podcast and you're in the pub having a pint. One is standing out and the other is just having enough coverage. Is there anything else that you kind of put into it, or is it just more like, look, we just take an approach and see what lands?
Oh, you mean in terms of my general marketing philosophy and strategy? Yeah, for my own, for like our SEO and AI search is different because that's more of a capture demand.
Yeah.
I work out what dream clients are searching on AI search or Google and show up top, build a piece of content that resonates with what they're looking for, and then position ourselves as the solution and drive inbound. Whereas my content, of course, we're trying to appeal to folks that fit our ICP but may have never heard of Breaking B2B in their life. So that's why LinkedIn's so great, because could be a marketer that stumbled across me for the first time, but they might see me, like you say, in the pub asking people like how to get to the top of Google or ChatGPT, and they'll be like, what the heck is this guy doing? Oh, actually, this is a little bit funny. Like, let's find out what he does. So that's kind of how I think about it. Like, break the pattern, stand out, do something different. Like, yes, we do the classic stuff like SEO breakdowns, tips, how-tos, industry news, what's going on, data, that kind of stuff, sure. But then I'll also throw in some wild cards like memes, videos, unusual stuff. Like, for example, end of this month, we're going to Spain purely to like film a bunch of content, like stay in a villa for a couple.
Spain.
Malaga.
Ah, nice.
Not been there before, so hopefully should be a bit warmer than UK at least.
Yeah.
And yeah, just do that like every now and then, take a break from work, like record some content for a couple of days, and then yeah, see how it lands really. A lot of it's an experiment, like some of it works, some of it doesn't. Wasn't able to do that when we started the company, but as you grow and as you get cash flow, then you can kind of afford to take more experiments.
Yeah. And no, it makes a lot of sense. I'd love to talk to you then specifically about like AEO, and you know, the one thing you touched on it there about LinkedIn as well, and I think profound is that they were like, LinkedIn is now the most cited place for professional. Initially, it was like the second one under Reddit, and now it's like for professional. And some people I know that when I used to work in LinkedIn, they're in LinkedIn and obviously very happy about this, to hear that they've been cited and so on.
Yeah.
My kind of like hypothesis or theory and like is, you know, it's like what you say, if you don't really have any like content and suddenly then you go down the AI route, like AI has to pull it from somewhere in terms of building your credibility, whether you actually have expertise in the space. I just wonder if people are just focusing primarily on LinkedIn now because it's the most professional place. Are they missing a trick from what you see?
In terms of LinkedIn or in terms of AI search in general?
In terms of AI search in general.
Yeah, weirdly, I don't see LinkedIn pulled that much in there. And I know I've seen the studies, but maybe it's for less. Maybe it's because I'm searching more commercial stuff. Like I'm always searching stuff that's relevant to our business. Like I'm a CMO, show me the best SaaS SEO agencies for this use case. But maybe they're talking about more broader general terms that I'm not looking
exactly. I think it was more like kind of say hiring, and then also like kind of very broad business terms, like kind of very much on kind of the human resources side. So it's kind of like a very general term. But of course, it's like it's marketing, isn't it? At the end of the day, I suppose it's a win-win for LinkedIn if they're getting cited.
LinkedIn must
like
be loving it. Yeah.
But I like from an AEO point of view, though, what do you think? Because it's just a mechanism really to search for content. It doesn't necessarily mean that you have to completely change your whole strategy now, right? Like if you have the fundamentals, you have to probably take into consideration. But like, when people are kind of coming to you and they're like, oh, we we need to be on AEO. Like what's the kind of approach that you give them, or like should they change their strategy drastically, or what way do you see it?
Yeah, most of the time it's usually what's happened is if a marketing leader comes on a call with us, they said, look, we need an AEO strategy, or we need to ramp up our AI visibility. And when I'll dig into it, I'll be like, well, okay, what's made you want to look at this now, and what's going on in the business, and why is this a priority, and all that kind of stuff. And usually it's one of the execs or the CEO is kind of searching for their category, like their type of software or their solution or similar, and they're not showing up. They're not being recommended. That's usually what's happened. Or they've seen a massive drop in their traffic because up to now they were focusing on more top funnel, like informational articles and things like that, and AI search, AI overviews. ChatGPT is just giving instant answers, not really giving brand recommendations, that kind of stuff. They've neglected like bottom of funnel, like money content, and their traffic's been eaten, their lead flow's dropped, and they're panicking. That's usually like the issues, the symptoms. And then I suppose to answer your question more directly, yeah, I mean, we work with 41, 42 active SaaS companies roughly. And most of it from what we see is just smart SEO, which is what SEO should have been anyway. Like work out what dream clients search, not when they're like information gathering or researching, but when they actively need your solution or software or service right now. And actually, instead of worrying about like all these crazy tactics, like going ham on Reddit, doing something on Quora, trying to pump out 100 YouTube videos, whatever it is, most of the time you need to get your foundation right. And from an SEO lens, that's your website, making sure that's best in class first. So you've got all your lines in the water for both Google organic search, because AI search like ChatGPT are pulling from Google as well. Because if you're doing a bottom of funnel search, like I'm a CMO, I have this headcount, I need this type of HR software, they're triggering something called grounding, which is when they'll do an active search and they'll pull from like Google search, etc. And ideally, best case scenario, you want them to be able to pull insight from your own content as opposed to another piece of content. And that's why making sure your website's best in class, so having like all your industry pages, your vertical pages, your product pages, competitor content, alternative content, a pricing page, these best X software listicles that get pulled from like crazy right now in AI search, and really owning your positioning, making sure that's like really dialed in on your website first is really important. Because I don't know about you, but I'd much rather that AI was pulling from my own website than, I don't know, a random Reddit thread where a disgruntled user is talking about my software and annoyed because I'm not sharing pricing, or I'm not sharing something on a use case or integration or who I serve. So get that nailed and dialed in first, which we can dive in deeper if you wish, and then worry about, again, this should have been good, like smart SEO and digital PR and B2B marketing anyway, worry about getting recommended and listed on other websites like review sites that evaluate your software, making sure your G2's in order, your Capterra's in order, like putting out solid YouTube content that educates the market and helps and entertains them, and that kind of stuff. So like most things, it's like getting the foundation right and then worrying about these other tactics that folks are going crazy on LinkedIn.
Yeah, it's true. And the big point there is really like the mechanism of how people discover you probably is changing slightly now because of LLMs. But it doesn't just necessarily mean if you've built up all this authority and that you have a fairly good, solid foundation, you've good references, you've a good customer base, you have very solid category and positioning. I don't think that's necessarily going to be just lost overnight just because they search for you now in an LLM as instead of Google. But I think a lot of companies are struggling with the transition of like, they kind of think that now because in an LLM, it's nearly requiring to have like a completely different positioning statement. Do you see companies kind of struggle with that? Like that they're nearly kind of getting, I don't know, what would it be like certain types of FOMO of like how we should approach AI? Or do you think they're pretty confident that their foundations are solid?
The worst thing I see is that a team might have given them like a AI visibility report or chart, and you'll look at it and it'll be like, okay, well, maybe you're really poor in compared to your competitors, but where's the commercial lens here? Like, are any of these actually related to what a dream client searches or prompts for when they're in market? Because if they're just broad general terms, that's like saying we sell CRM software, but someone's searching for like, I don't know, what to consider before doing something in Google spreadsheets around my business. It's like they're searching something that's so top funnel and informative based, but they don't have that commercial intent. They weren't going to be buyers anyway. So if you are going to track that stuff, work out what folks are kind of prompting when they actually have their sales intent, which in itself is a bit of a game.
Yeah.
And then worry about kind of what's showing up is your brand being recommended and so forth. So there's a lot of kind of scare tactics, weird stuff, execs worrying about reports that don't necessarily have commercial value to them. I can't say like we 100% have nailed AI search. I don't think anyone has yet. because the problem is results can vary so much from each search, depending on your history, where you're searching from, the platform you're using, and more. But right now, a lot of the SEO fundamentals carry through. I often say the best way to get recommended in LLMs was to build a brand just 10 years ago. Whereas the next best thing is to get your SEO in order and then worry about doing ecosystem marketing, a bit like we're talking about now, like making sure you're recommended positioned well on review sites, involved in relevant Reddit threads, maybe doing like manual outreach to other folks that are talking about software like yours and these kind of basics and that kind of stuff, really.
One of the other things as well, and I think that's the difficult one for a lot of people in B2B, it's those intent signals. Because, if you're, let's say you're a Series B company or something and you're trying to sell into enterprise, it's probably like you're going to look on SEO and you're going to look on it. Just ask the guy that left to work in another company that used to be an old colleague what they're using, or there's definitely like the referral part that's playing a big part in the purchasing decision. But I just wonder, from what you see of like intent signal, what, apart from like the SEO part, like what other things are effective intent signals for B2B from what you've seen?
There's loads, right? Like, you mean,
yeah.
Is your question like how do B2B execs build their shortlist of vendors to reach out to?
Yeah, that's ultimately it. But I suppose it's before you get on that list, it's like, how do you even get considered? Exactly. And I think that's the one.
Did you see Winter's recent research studies?
No, I didn't actually know. I did. The thing about the CFO, was it?
He's done a load recently, actually. Some interesting stuff. So the guys at Winter have been pumping out a bunch of reports. I think it was I can't remember. Like, there were so many different reports over the last few days, but one of them was like 70% use LLMs, as part of the consideration to see what brands are recommended. But to answer your question, is a mix, right? And it also depends. It depends so much on the ICP, where they get trusted information from, and that's often the case. Like, I say similar stuff to folks when they come on SEO calls, like discovery calls with us. Like, I'll turn away a lot of business, especially to like marketers or founders in SaaS companies that may be trying to create something new that doesn't have active demand, like a brand new category or brand new software, brand new tool. So search is not the place to start. People don't know this thing exists. There's no demand to collect here. You're way better off educating folks, like working out exactly who your ICP is, where they spend their time, and where they get trusted information from, if that's events. They listen to certain podcasts. Maybe they're probably hang out on LinkedIn, etc. And like spend your time educating, entertaining, and building trust with them. When the demand's built, then you can capture it. But LLM's part of it. Google search might be part of it. Peers, communities, like you say, referrals from trusted colleagues. If they listen to certain shows, if they go to trade shows, like it of course depends on that market, that persona, and where they're getting their information from and how they like to consume it.
And I guess as well, if you like what you were saying, somebody coming to you that's, has a completely new or they're trying to create a new category, I guess you can look and you can kind of see based on kind of keyword volume if there's actually demand there. And if there's not, then it's a difficult one and really to try and create it on search initially.
Yeah. It's like, I guess that's where kind of me, the sales background kicks in, because I'll just ask questions like, let's pretend I'm a dream client. Like, what if I need your solution now? What am I calling it, or what might I potentially search for? And when they push back, I'd be like, well, actually, it's not a new thing. It's actually a brand new thing. Like, I don't know what you would search. It's not a known solution. So then I'd usually check the classic SEO tools, AI search tools, and be like, well, we could do it, but it's going to be an uphill battle. So you could own the category, and we can make sure when folks eventually are searching for this stuff, or maybe they're looking for, like, if there's indirect competitors, maybe they're looking to switch from those, or maybe they're looking for specific pain points or stuff that's not quite what you do. To trialing that and seeing how it goes, fine. But if you want pipeline, like next 90 days plus, you're way better off like working out where these dream clients spend their time, get trusted information, be active there, because this isn't going to be a channel for you right now.
Makes a lot of sense. I'd love to dive into a little bit more then in terms of like when a client comes to you then of, you start working with them. You mentioned, and you have a lot of like very detailed, useful explaining videos, but like, what does the first, say, 90 days look at like when you take on a client and let's say you manage the expectations, there's demand there, you're want to get them like kind of the best, what would I say, like kind of return on their investment and so on. But like what kind of frameworks or like what do you think is kind of like the first step to kind of get them in the right direction?
Yeah. I'll fly through this because I've got 7 minutes before I got to hop off. So
sure.
Yeah, if a SaaS marketing leader, SaaS founder jumps on a call with us and kind of says, what can you do in the first 90 days or so to drive inbounds? Then One, it's like we talked about the foundation. It's basically working out, like doing the background research, so collecting everything we can from like sales and knowledge, like who's the dream client, who's the ICP, what industries like do your best clients fall within, what's the expensive problems they come to you to solve, what competitors do they stack you up against, why do they choose you over your competition, all those kind of key like classic B2B customer research stuff that should be like 101. Can we pull from sales call transcripts and get all these golden nuggets? We have like a solid research base to pull from. Then we've got that. We can then, from a classic Google organic search, identify what are the money keywords, like what do dream clients search when they need the solution now, like the software or the industry or the use case, or looking for an integration. Frustrated with the incumbent vendor, looking to switch away from the alternative, evaluating pricing, evaluating other vendors across each other or similar, what we call money keywords or money prompts. Quickest win you can get is if you already have commercial or bottom of funnel content already on your website. So if you already have some landing pages or some best X software listicles, articles, competitor content, use case pages, maybe you've got it, but it's not being picked up on AI search or it's not ranking top of Google organic. We've got the pages already. Let's make those best in class. So let's update those. Might be a content refresh, might be adding extra sections, might be adding some unique research, some unique stats, some more social proof, maybe driving some backlinks to it or brand mentions, because that can give us a quick uplift. Like it could be as quick as days or a couple months. Could rank top of Google, could be cited in AI search and drive us some pipe. Next is going after like net new or low competition but high sales intent stuff. So things like if you're in SaaS, working out what competitors folks stack you against or switch away from. So if we were in the calendar scheduling software space, like I often talk about, if we were, say, I don't know, a competitor of Chili Piper, then we might, or Calendly, then we might go after things like Chili Piper alternatives or Calendly alternatives or HubSpot meetings alternatives or Revenue Hero alternatives, because those kind of searches, low search volume, like there might be like 50, 100 people searching for a month, but people aren't searching it for fun. We know that we can work out. We know that we can work out what type of page we need to build, which is probably like we evaluate the top 10 Chili Piper alternatives of 2026, use our customer research, use our sales call intel, give a quick snapshot at the top, like what this is about, why you should trust us. Here's the options we're evaluating, then jump in, like position ourselves as number one backed by customer research. Here's where a great fit. Here's where a poor fit. Here's our pricing, CTA, and then a fair evaluation of the others. And start with that like real high intent stuff that can rank fast because it's low competition. And then slowly build out the more competitive stuff like the generic best X software, industry pages, and so forth. And meanwhile, if your team has resource, then you can do off-page stuff. Like if you've got partners that serve similar ICPs but aren't direct competitors, maybe you can do guest articles on their website, get a brand mention, get a backlink. Maybe they've got lists like evaluating software like yours. They can place you in those. Maybe you can do some cross collaboration podcasts like we're doing now, like some content together. Get a backlink, get a brand mention. So there's a lot of scrappy stuff you can do off page. A lot of it is identifying, like we talked about, what has the high sales intent. What do we already have that we can get a quick lift on? What do we need to do net new that we can see a quick uplift on that has kind of relatively low search but high buying intent? Then what's going to be the longer term, like medium term, longer term bets that we need to kind of build out, do some off page digital PR, link building, maybe get mentioned in external listicles that we can build out over time. And then if you've got more resource and you want to get kind of brand mentions in AI search, you can do things like work out what Reddit threads are being cited, and like look to kind of put insightful, helpful, useful comments in those. Look at what external niche relevant listicles are being picked up and look to try and outreach and get placements in those. For example, Breaking B, probably about 4 or 5 months ago, we were almost invisible in AI search. All I did was like a sprint of just outreaching to all the founders of all my competitors, like all the other SaaS SEO agencies, and just offered them like a trade, like, can I get featured top 3 in your list? And I'll put you somewhere in mine. Yeah. And then we went from basically invisible to being like recommended for a lot of like the SaaS SEO agency based prompts and terms.
It's good, but because it's a win-win for each of you, you know?
So it's almost like going back to the old school SEO, like guest posting stuff back in the day. But yeah, that's a quick snapshot. Of course, there's more to it, but that's just some of the stuff that you can get with quite a low lift.
Yeah. Just before we finish up, two questions. One is B2B creators from the companies that you work with and the way that you see, you know, that's a big trend in the last, say, 18 months in B2B specifically. Have the companies that you work with, are you seeing much of an uplift in terms of their overall marketing, it being effective at driving kind of long-term pipeline? And it's more of an upper funnel play, but like as an overall marketing play, are you seeing that it's paying off for them?
Thought leadership, like exec brand and founder brand.
Both. So like working with B2B partners, like creators outside the company, and then also thought leadership as in advocates within the company.
Not enough do it. Not enough do it is the short answer. Like the marketing leaders that I do speak to, I think a lot of them I think are trying to like encourage their execs, their founders, because they have the expertise, like to publish on LinkedIn. I just think it's like there's a gap between like the marketers know it's something that needs to be done and the founders just maybe don't see the value. It's like when you see founders of these huge SaaS companies and then just reposting the company page stuff saying like, really proud of the team for doing this or something like that, or they're doing a great job, or look at our recent results. And it's like, if you just posted this as a post on your own page and like put a decent hook and a good write-up, like you'd probably just print inbounds. And it's like, it's very frustrating, but like anything, it's got to come from within. It's no good telling someone to do something. They've got to see it or be recommended to do it or whatever.
Yeah, it's true. I think a lot of people are kind of seeing the value there, but people are kind of not really maybe seeing the actual pipeline impact yet. So they're not yet doubling down, but the companies that are doing it well seem to be getting a lot, like, and especially, I think it's more founder companies as well, like Series A and stuff that are getting great results. Finally, before we finish, for B2B predictions for the future in the next 18 months or so, where do you see things going? Any particular wild bets or anything you see that will be kind of changing or different in the industry?
Yeah, I mean, we're seeing, of course, like this is my bias that like AI search and a pipeline focused approach for SEO and AI search is on the uptick. But outside of my niche, I think what we talked about then, I think the companies that are going to see big growth, because what AI content lacks is your own personal point of view and experiences. And I think, at least in my feed, the content that kind of resonates with me the most and seems to get like decent traction is the folks, the founders, the execs on teams that are like openly building in public, sharing experiments, sharing what did work, what didn't work, behind the scenes stuff, the stuff that AI can't replicate, and like more transparency in exactly what's going on in their business, the ups, the downs, sharing the playbooks, talking about case studies openly rather than gating everything. And I think just like making stuff an open book, because that's what can't be replicated. And that's what I'm striving to do more and more for both, I guess, memorability, but then secondly, actually the proofs in the pudding. And this kind of stuff is like gems to retarget with LinkedIn thought leadership ads as well.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's probably what I'd say.
Yeah, definitely. And like what you mentioned about LinkedIn as well, now that with thought leader ads and stuff, you could tie it to some kind of impact with retargeting messages and so on as well. Sam, it was a pleasure having you on the show. We will put your details in the show notes, but where are you most active if people want to see you asking the public general questions or sharing your content? Where are you most active so people can find you?
Yeah, appreciate having me on. I guess there's three main channels. One is LinkedIn, daily ramblings on SEO and AI search for SaaS companies and ask the public and crazy stuff. Second is, the podcast and YouTube, Breaking B2B. And thirdly, if you're kind of tired of seeing competitors mentioned on AI search or ranking above you in Google Organic and want to finally kind of make SEO and AI search a steady flow, a steady driver of inbound leads and demos, then breakingb2b.com, we might be able to help.
Yeah, we'll put all the details in the show notes. Sam, thanks again for joining us. It was great talking with you.
Good chat. Speak soon.
Cheers.
Cheers, man.